All right, good morning. My name is Husain, and I, along with Floyd Weissner and Omar Khwaja, represent the parents of George Kabal. George Kabal was a young man in the prime of his life who was the apple of his mother's eye and a leader in his family. And he was taken away from his family, literally ripped from their clutches as a result of Boeing Corporation's greed. In my 20 years of working on aviation cases around the world, I have never seen a more reckless example of a company putting profit over safety. Boeing Corporation, as our complaint outlines, marketed the 737 MAX as one of the safest planes in the world. It was their best-selling plane in the history of the corporation, and the reason Boeing was able to sell so many of the 737 MAX planes is because it promised to its customers, the airlines around the world, double-digit fuel savings, which in a highly competitive industry meant more money for the bottom line of the airline. And how did they promise double-digit fuel savings? How did they promise such an increase in profit? Well, by developing and mounting a much bigger engine on a 50-year-old plane. The Boeing 737 was introduced by Boeing in 1967. And for 50 years, they've tweaked the plane, redeveloped it, made it longer, made the engine bigger, made the wings longer, to keep trying to profit from that design. So the Boeing 737 was basically taking a 50-year-old plane and putting bigger engines on it. And what happened when they put the bigger engines on it, they had to mount those engines differently on the wings. And by mounting those bigger engines differently on the wings, this changed the flight characteristics of the plane. What happened is that the plane would then pitch up when the pilots were not aware of it. And this changed the flight characteristics of the plane. It's called the MCAS system. And we all know now what Boeing knew then, before the first plane was delivered, that there was an issue with the MCAS system. But did Boeing step up and explain that to the pilots, to the airlines, to its customers that, hey, we need to tell you about this MCAS system. This is what the software does. This is why it's there. That the plane has a propensity to do something dangerous, so you should be made aware of it. Did they do any of that? Did they include an explanation of the MCAS system in the operating manual of the new 737 MAX? No, they didn't do any of that. Because they didn't want to increase the cost of the plane. They didn't want airlines to incur additional training for its pilots. They wanted to continue to sell this plane at a record pace. Boeing has 5,000 orders for this plane that sells for a list price of around $120 million. So what did Boeing do? It made the decision to just stay quiet and put profits over safety. So when the plane started getting delivered in 2017 and pilots started reporting issues with the plane, did Boeing do anything about it? No, it put profit over safeties. And then when Lion Air 610 crashed minutes after takeoff from Jakarta International Airport last year, at that time did Boeing step up when 157 people were killed as a result of Boeing's greed? No. Did Boeing step up and say, we understand there's a problem with this plane and we should probably ground this plane until we figure out what the problem is? No. Did Boeing say, we need to tell you guys about the MCAS system. We need all pilots trained on the MCAS system. We need all pilots to understand how to disable the MCAS system. Did Boeing do that? No. Boeing told Lion Air this plane is safe to fly. Boeing told the world this plane is safe to fly. And Boeing allowed me, my family, your family, our friends, our co-workers around the world to continue to fly on a dangerous plane that it knew was dangerous in order to put profit over safety. And then tragically, months later, on March 10th of this year, when Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed minutes after taking off and killed another 149 people, did Boeing at that time step up and say, we know there's a problem with this plane. We know there's a problem with the software. We know there's an issue with the angle of attack sensors. We know that we didn't properly train the pilots on how to disable the MCAS system. Did Boeing do any of that? When the entire world was rushing to ground the 437 delivered planes in the world, to put them on the ground, did Boeing agree to do that? No. What did Boeing do? The exact opposite. Boeing's CEO got on the phone with the President of the United States of America and explained to the President, Mr. President, this plane is a safe plane. The United States of America should definitely not ground the plane, or something to that effect. It didn't take responsibility. And as the days followed and the evidence became insurmountable, that the MCAS system definitely contributed to the crash of Ethiopian Flight 302, the FAA was left with no alternative but to ground the plane. So now the 737 MAX is grounded. But even after grounding the plane, if you read Boeing's statement, it says, "We believe in the safety of this plane." So even then, they continue to insist that the plane was safe. Well, we know now what Boeing knew way back then, that the Boeing 737 MAX, as designed and as built, is not a safe plane. And that is why it has not been flying. And that is why it'll probably not be flying until at least the end of the summer. You don't fix something that's not broken. And Boeing and its engineers and subcontractors have been working furiously to fix the Boeing 737 MAX. But as they try to fix the MCAS system, other problems have come to light. This is a prime example of a company disregarding the lives of people in order to put profit over safety. Our clients have hired us to do two things. One is to get answers for them through the discovery process in the United States of America. And in order to do that, yesterday we filed a complaint on behalf of George Cabal's parents in United States Federal District Court in Illinois. And by doing that, this will allow us through the discovery process to look into Boeing's decision-making process. So our clients have retained us to find out what happened, why it happened, and to prevent this from happening in the future. It's important for our clients to try to explain to the world why this happened and how this can be prevented in the future. And our clients also want us to hold Boeing accountable for its decision-making process. They made the conscious decision to allow the public to continue to fly on an unsafe product, on an unsafe plane that they knew was dangerous, but they decided to ignore it and roll the dice. Secondly, our clients are hoping a jury in the United States of America will not only compensate them for their irreplaceable loss, but also hold Boeing accountable for the fact that it did something that caused the tragic life of 346 people. We know now what Boeing has said. The Boeing CEO has come out and acknowledged that the MCAS system contributed to the Ethiopian Flight 302 crash, and the MCAS system contributed to the Lion Air 610 crash. And the Boeing CEO has apologized. But you know what? The Boeing CEO's apology is not going to bring back George Cabal. It's not going to bring back the 345 other beautiful people who lost their lives on those two flights. It's not going to fix the shattered lives of all of the relatives, friends, and coworkers of those beautiful people who were on those two flights. It's not going to do any of that. I'm sorry, it's just not enough. We hope that a United States jury, after considering all the evidence which will be presented to them in a trial, will hold Boeing accountable and send a message to Boeing and all other large corporations that have billions and billions of dollars of sales every year and high-level contacts in the government to the extent where the CEO can pick up the phone and call the President of the United States. We hope a jury in the United States of America will tell Boeing that it doesn't matter how big you are and how much money you have and what kind of contacts you have. When you put profits over safety, you will be held accountable and you will have to pay your price. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. At this time, I'd like to introduce my client, Esther Cabal. Esther, would you please come up here and speak shortly about George?